It's time for the final countdown. The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go!
Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, no matter what time of day it is where you're at. And I want to welcome you to this week's episode of The Fireplace Show. And each and every week, we try to bring you information to help you as a consumer with information about your fireplace, your wood stoves, your gas logs, different things. And tonight, we got a really good subject matter, and I've got a great guest coming on that'll be helping me here tonight. And his name is Sean Kraemer, and he comes from Yreka, California. He has a company there, and he is both a chimney service company, a chimney sweep, and he also owns a fireplace and wood stove shop there in Yreka. A young man with a lot of good information. He actually does a podcast, and I think he's going to give some good information tonight because our subject matter is going to be how do you select a wood stove, a wood burning insert, a wood burning appliance for your house. So that's going to be our subject matter tonight. So stick around with us. I'm going to get our intro going, and then when we come back, Sean will be on with me, and we'll get started with tonight's presentation. Again, appreciate you being here with us. I hope this is a time of value for you. So, good evening, Sean. How is things in California this evening?
Things are great. Things are doing good. How about you, Jerry? How are you doing?
Doing just great. Sean, let's give the folks a little bit of background. Tell them about how long you've been in this business and a little bit about your company there, Holy Smokes Fireplace and Chimney Specialist.
Yeah. So I've been in the industry for a little over 14 years. I started in 2007, pretty much straight out of high school. And the business that I own, Holy Smoke Inc., it was established in 1979 by my previous partners who have since retired. My wife and I took over in 2019, and as you were saying, we run a service business. We do installations, but we also have a showroom where we sell product and display product. So, yeah.
And that's it. And Sean, you mentioned your wife. Her name's Hannah. And then you got two great little kids there also, don't you?
We do. Yeah. We've got two little ones, one on the verge of turning 3, one on the verge of turning 1. So, yeah.
So it's a handful, and you work yourself pretty hard, drive yourself, and you run the business that's really coming alive. And I also know you try to help people a lot in this industry. You actually do a podcast every week when you can. It's about the life of a chimney sweep, and you share some of the things, and it's made for networking with other people and that kind of stuff. So I really applaud you for what you're doing out there. So like I said, tonight's episode, Sean, this came up because I get questions from people. What should I buy? I want to buy a new wood stove, and what's the best kind? And a lot of people think that, hey, the best kind may be some stove made 30, 40 years ago, a Fisher or a Blaze King or other brands. And, I don't know about you, but I follow a lot of Facebook forums, and one of them is wood heat. In fact, there was a question asked on there that kind of gave me the idea of doing this show when somebody asked, hey, what's the best wood stove for me to buy today? So I felt like that would be a really good subject matter for us to delve into tonight. And Sean, you were willing to help me out with this, and I really appreciate that from you, brother. So let's go with that question, Sean. If a consumer walked into your store today and they said, hey, I want to buy a new wood stove, and I don't know nothing about them, and, tell me about them. What would you tell that consumer, Sean?
Well, usually my approach is I want to try and find out a little bit more about their needs and their lifestyle. So I'll ask a lot of questions just to kind of learn a little bit more about them. Are they looking for something that's going to be primarily for heat? Is that going to be the primary source? Is this going to be a backup? Are looks and something to consider? Do they want something that looks really good? What does look good to them? Do they want something that has a lot of bells and whistles? Do they want something very utilitarian? One of the very first questions I usually ask people too, just to kind of narrow down the playing field, is how big of a space are you trying to heat as well? So this can kind of help narrow us down to a handful of models and selections. But when it comes to finding the right wood stove for someone, there's a lot that goes into it. And again, I think it really comes down to the individual, figuring out what is going to work for them, for their needs, and understanding that.
Gotcha. Now, Sean, one of the things about the wood stoves that are made today is the Environmental Protection Association, the agency, EPA, actually governs the wood stoves and the wood smoke emissions. And you're in California, I'm in North Carolina. So emissions are probably a lot bigger issue for you in California than they are for those of us on the East Coast. And you also live in, we're going to call it the high desert country. You're up above the mountains. Sean's located not far from the Oregon border. So it's kind of what we phrase as the high country. So the stoves that you sell today, Sean, do these all meet EPA clean burning standards when people come into a showroom and look at them?
They do, yeah. The new EPA regulations that came out in 2020 pretty much state that you can't manufacture a stove nowadays that doesn't meet those requirements in the US. It can't be sold, right? So all of the manufacturers that we're dealing with have to meet those requirements. So in turn, all the products that we're carrying, wood and pellet, meet today's EPA standards.
Right. If I'm not mistaken, it would be a violation of federal law for you to even have a new stove on your floor that did not meet the current EPA requirements. Would that be correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. So let's go into a little bit, because as people come in, there's going to be different types of burn designs. So first thing is, one of the types that can be picked from is a stove that's called a catalytic, a cat stove, or possibly a catalyst stove. Is the catalyst still one of the afterburner systems that is approved by EPA to sell legally in the year 2022 in your market area?
Yeah, really, when we're looking at the technology of wood stoves, there's kind of, I put it into three different categories. So as you're saying, there's the cat stove, or a stove that has a catalytic combustor in it. And that's, just used to help clean up the emissions and create more efficiency from the appliance. But there's also kind of a little bit more of a traditional method, which is just what we call a secondary reburn system. So it's usually just a series of air tubes inside of an appliance, and there's air coming through those air tubes that helps with the emissions, again, helps with efficiency. And then the third is what we call a hybrid. And so a hybrid is going to have both of those. It's going to have the air tubes and a catalytic combustor inside of it.
Okay, so if a consumer is looking at a new stove today, what's the best choice for them? Is it going to be the catalytic unit, or is it the second type that I've always called the high-tech afterburner system, or is it the new hybrid? Which is the best choice for a consumer for heating their home?
Really, I think it comes down to the appliance and the manufacturer. All three technologies work really well. And as far as emissions go, they're all meeting the regulations. They all have can produce wonderful efficiencies. So I don't really focus too much on the actual technology in the stove. It's more of what's going to fit their needs, what do they like to look at. However, with that being said, some considerations might be what type of maintenance is going to be required, and what kind of cost might you look at down the road to have to replace these parts. And that's sometimes where we can, start talking about warranties for different appliances and different manufacturers as well. But for instance, like a catalytic combustor, it is a maintenance item. It is something that you are supposed to maintain on a regular basis to make sure that it doesn't get plugged up and make sure that it's functioning properly. Whereas like a secondary reburn system, just air tubes, there's really no maintenance involved with those. Hopefully, you're having your annual inspection done by a certified chimney sweep. And that's typically something that would be looked at just to make sure that there's no warpage or damage to them. But for the consumer, there's nothing really that you need to do, which is really nice. So for some people, they just want something very simple that they don't really have to do anything with. And that's where a stove that has a secondary reburn system in it comes into play. If they're not too worried about that, if they're not worried about a little bit of maintenance, weekly or monthly maintenance, which, cleaning a catalytic combustor is very simple to do. But if they're not worried about that, a hybrid or a straight catalytic stove could be a great option as well.
Okay, so on today's stove, Sean, and a lot of people look at this and may have had a stove in the past that had a glass door on the front, and the glass door may have smoked up. So how clean can that gas be? Can the glass be kept on the present day's units?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it comes down to the manufacturer and the designs, just based off of my experience. But in general, most modern stoves are going to have a really clean glass. Most of them are equipped with what we call an air wash. And that's just basically an area where air is coming into the stove and it comes between the fire and the glass, and it helps keep that glass clean. The biggest issue that I come across with the glass getting dirty is just improper operation, or the fuel that you're using isn't seasoned properly. I mean, you might have wood that's too wet, and that can really cause that glass to get dirty. So, at least where we're at, in our business, we spend a lot of time with education and explaining these things. And typically, if your glass is getting dirty on a modern stove, there's something wrong. Either not burning it hot enough, or again, the fuel isn't as good as it could be. So
Right. And my friend Jason Toomey, he's up in the Rochester, New York area. He's also very similar to you. He has a chimney service business, and he has a fireplace, a wood stove shop there. Sells a lot of product. You and him are very, very similar in a lot of ways. And he just made a about the tubes, and the tubes have got to be facing the right way. So that's part of this. And here's the next question, Sean, which is what I often tell people, that the installation of the wood burning stove is all important in making it properly perform. And what I'm talking about here is that we have a chimney and venting system that is installed and has a proper height to properly vent. It is sufficiently sized with the proper amount of flow with the smoke and the gases that go through it. And we also have a venting system that will stay warm to keep the flue gases warm. Would you agree with everything I just said? And is there anything you would add to my advice I just offered?
yeah, I would completely agree. The operation and the function and performance of the appliance really, that chimney or venting system is a big part of it. And it's really important to make sure that that is correct. So I always recommend to people at least having a professional who is familiar with those systems take a look at it or install it, make sure they're licensed to do that. At the very least, if you're going to be doing it yourself, doing a DIY project, make sure to read the manual. If you don't understand it, reach out to the manufacturer and ask them questions, because it is critical to make sure, not only for the safety of your home, but for the correct operation of the appliance and for optimum performance, to make sure that that venting and chimney system is how it should be.
Okay. And like I mentioned, sizing is critical. In other words, we need a venting system that matches the outlet of the stove. So, Sean, just verify for me, do the wood stoves that you sell on your showroom floor, do all of those require a 6-inch round venting system to connect to the stove? Is there any 8-inch units that would utilize an 8-inch pipe on your floor?
Actually, yeah, pretty much all of our units are 6-inch, but we have one appliance on our showroom floor that is 8-inch. It's pretty uncommon to find 8-inch outlets on a stove these days. I think one of the reasons why that is so uncommon nowadays is because of draft, because of suction in a system. So the smaller pipe that you have, the more suction or draft you're going to have in that system. A lot of factors, but it's important to have a lot of suction in your system to make sure that the modern appliance is going to going to perform properly. It's not going to smoke out into the room, and that those reburn systems are going to function properly. And it's all driven by draft. So that's why most modern stoves have a smaller diameter flue than, say, 40 years ago with older appliances, which were mostly on an 8-inch chimney system.
So what you're referring to is back in my younger days, Sean, when I was installing stoves, when I got started in this business 40 some years ago. Yeah, we had a lot of 8-inch stove, and it was certainly a joy whenever many of these stoves started being made that could be used with the 6-inch liner, which is going to be a reduction in cost for a consumer. It was a really good thing, and it's easier to fit the liner in. But again, let's go just a little deeper into this. And the purpose of that lining to make that stove perform is we need to keep that chimney, that venting system, the inside of it, as hot as possible. So installers like you usually insulate these liners. What do you insulate that liner with, Sean, when you install it to keep it hot and keep it warm like this?
Yeah, so when we're talking about chimney liners that are going inside of a masonry chimney, it is critical to, I think, to insulate them for many reasons, but most of the time it's actually a requirement. And part of that requirement is that you have a type of insulation that's listed to be used in that application. And it typically is like a ceramic fiber insulation or CeraWool or super wool. There's lots of different names, but it's a high temperature insulation that's specifically designed for that application. With a lot of modern lining systems, you can actually get those systems pre-insulated as well. That's kind of what we do here. Most of the time we use pre-insulated systems. It saves on labor, makes it a little bit smoother as far as installation goes as well.
Right. So when Sean's talking about a pre-insulated, you're talking about the interior lining where the smoke and the gases go. And then outside of that, we're going to have a layer of insulation. And then outside of that, they're going to put another layer of metal on the outside of that ceramic wool insulation. Am I correct what I just said?
Correct. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then if we have a metal chimney system in the industry, we call that a Class A system. And there's a lot of different Class A factory built systems on the market. But this is the key thing on a wood burning stove. You can get Class A systems that are listed and tested to 1,700 degrees Fahrenheit, but you also can get them for 2,100 degrees Fahrenheit. And on a wood burning system going to a sealed combustion device, it's got to be a 2,100 degree chimney by the Consumer Product Safety Commission standards. Am I correct in what I'm saying, Sean?
Yep. Yeah. I think those are called HT systems, factory built chimney systems. Yep.
Correct. They would be listed in our industry. We would call that a 103 HT chimney, which that came out in the early 80s was when that came to be. So, Sean, here's one final question. Somebody's going to go shopping for wood stoves. And let's face it, they can click a button on the internet and they can probably buy a stove, get it shipped to their home. And then what are they going to do with it at this point? So if a consumer is ready to do this, what would you tell them if they're not in Yreka or they're not in Rochester, where my buddy Jason's located at Big Ash? What would you tell this consumer to look for if they're going to go shopping for a new wood burning appliance for their home?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things there with purchasing online. I would say buyer beware. The issues with a lot of appliances that are being sold online is that they're really inexpensive. And the thing about that is they're not going to last nearly as long. I've seen a lot of those appliances that you purchase online or they purchase from hardware stores, even like Home Depot or Lowe's, and they really have a much shorter lifespan. The other challenge is a lot of times that they're coming from another country like China, and those companies go out of business left and right, and it's hard getting replacement parts for them if something does fail, and their warranties just aren't as good. So if you're going to be buying online, really make sure to do your research. I highly recommend getting a US made or US brand stove. As long Canada too makes some really great products, but something local to North America and look at the warranties. Now, another thing to really consider when you're buying online is, who's going to install it for you? If you're not planning on installing it, definitely make sure that you reach out to the person who will, the licensed contractor or your stove shop who has installers, and connect with them first and make sure it's something that they can do, and make sure that it'll fit in the space that you're trying to put it in. And another thing too about buying online versus buying in a stove shop is a lot of times you're not going to get the support. So if you were to go into a stove shop and have that stove shop install that appliance for you, they're typically going to provide you with, an in-house warranty or some kind of guarantee. They're also going to be able to perform a lot of the warranty work on that product you purchased from them. And that is extremely valuable. It saves you a big headache. If you bought an appliance online and then came to me for warranty work, I wouldn't be able to fulfill that warranty work for you. You'd have to go through the place you bought it from. And that can be really challenging when you're purchasing it online. So those are some of the things that I would think about and look at if you choose to buy online.
Right. Well, Sharon, let's go a little bit deeper into this proper installation. You're a company that believes heavily in training people, and as you know, that's one of my functions. I am a trainer, and I train people across the United States. So let's take it that if someone new walked in your door, knocked on your door, and said today, "Hey, I want a job with Holy Smokes, and I want to install wood burning appliances. And I know how to work a screwdriver and a drill, but I know nothing." How long would you train that person before you would turn them loose on the citizenry of Yreka, California?
Typically, we're looking at a 6-month period. Seems to be about the turnaround rate for us for new technicians. Now, the thing about that is getting a new technician out into a truck for us, we ease them into it. We typically don't put someone in the truck and then they're doing every single job that comes across, our table. No, we're making sure that we're assigning them kind of the easier things, making sure that they get a feel for being out in a truck. We tend to work in teams as well. So there's a whole lot that they have to get used to. So it's a progressive thing. We start slow, ease them into it, wait until they feel comfortable, till we feel comfortable, and then we start adding in more things for them. So really the process, getting a technician to where they're really competent and able to do installation work can take anywhere from 6 to 12 months. But a big thing that we focus on with our training is making sure to read the manuals and study those manuals, and making sure that we're doing things right and question things. And we're not only just studying the installation instructions for the appliance, which is really important, but also, we are certified as well. So there's a lot of industry knowledge that we're obtaining along the way as well, and that kind of coincides with installing these appliances as well. So that's kind of the benefit of having someone who's not just a general contractor, but someone who's actually in the chimney sweeping and fireplace industry. They bring a lot more knowledge to the table, and they're usually someone that can help you with troubleshooting needs and also can service that system for you in the future, which is a really important thing to make sure that you're doing. So,
Right. Yeah. And Sean, that's a lot of the investment that you as a business owner have to make in this day and time, is both the time that you spend training these people and also the money that you spend out of your budget every year for training. I'm presuming this is probably a pretty radical number in today's world to actually train people. Would that be true?
It most certainly is. Yeah, we invest a lot into training. We invest a lot into our people because we believe in it. I didn't start that way. I learned a lot just by experience, figuring things out. And these guys we have on our team here, I feel they're a little spoiled sometimes because they have so many resources and they got everything right there at their fingertips. And we do a lot of different types of training too. I mean, you, Jerry, offer an online training program that we subscribe to, but we also do in-class trainings. We've recently gone to a convention, which was a week-long event of training. So, and we do our own in-house training as well. We're doing weekly trainings, and each quarter we set aside a week to really focus on things that we need to improve on. So it's a constant evolving learning process for us.
Right. And not only is it learning the technical skills, Sean, you're also a company that does safety training for your people. Because one of the things is, hey, this could be a dangerous occupation. We're climbing on roofs, you're working in snow, you're working in bad weather, and all these kind of things. So you're also heavily invested into safety training for your people also. And I applaud you for that. So is there anything you would add in to anyone listening to this that would help them in making this decision over who to buy from and how to buy the right product? Is there anything else you would add to this?
Yeah, for a consumer, if you're looking for a product, an appliance, wood appliance, I would just make sure to find the right person for you. Find someone who's actually interested in fulfilling your needs and ask you questions about, how much space you've got, how do you want to use the appliance? Are you home a lot? Are you gone a lot? Are you interested in looks? People that are asking those questions are probably going to be a better fit for actually finding the right unit for you. There are so many products out there on the market, so many brands, and the majority of them are really amazing. Today's technology, there's just some really amazing brands and products. So you could go to 3 different stove shops and there could be 10 different appliances that could really work for you. But really, I think it's finding the company that works for you, finding the people that are there to actually help you, and that are going to support you through this buying process and be able to be that support in the future if you have a question or if there is an issue. So that would be my advice.
Got you, Sean. So what I just did, I just posted a link to your website. So if you're in the Northern California area, up towards Oregon, that's where Sean is at, and feel free to reach out to him. If you need any assistance, visit his shop there. It's in Yreka. So Sean, last thing, why don't you share your phone number with them? They can, and that way, if they need to connect with you, they've got both your, they've got your website and they've got your phone number.
Yeah, so if you want to get a hold of us, our phone number is 530-841-1841. And you can always reach out to us by email as well. And that's info@holysmokestoves.com.
That's it. And if you call, hey, tell them it's Margie and it is Sarah, who answers your call. Just tell them, hey, Jerry and Sean, you heard us online. And hey, you need their assistance. They can help you out. Well, Sean, I appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule today, because I know you've been out in the field working and doing the things that Sean does. And it's probably about time for you to go have dinner with Hannah and the kids. Tell them I said, hey, and I appreciate you being here tonight with my friend. I think you've shared a lot of useful information with consumers tonight. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Jerry. It's been an honor, and hopefully this has been helpful to all you out there.
There you go. And with that, we'll see you next time on the next episode of The Fireplace Show. Feel free to tune us in, and you can find our past episodes on YouTube. You can find them on our website, CVC Success Group.com.